Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. President and all the dear participants and express my gratitude. Hopefully everyone is doing well health-wise, and of course it's really important nowadays to be with our beloved ones. In the occasion of the 8th Ethics Summit, it's really a pleasure for me to be with you, with all of you, and we'll be discussing and looking into different aspects of sustainability, which I have spoken many times in different occasions, but today's theme is quite a big one. And on behalf of Unilever, we also prefer to always speak about the new horizons and great reset, or the paradigm shift in capitalism. These are all interrelated themes, but hopefully new horizons and new thresholds is something that has been exciting me a lot. Therefore, I have to say that I'm quite excited to be with you in this session. In addition to that, I've been following the Society's activities recently in particular, and I really admire what you are doing, in particular in terms of raising awareness in ethics. Ethics being recognized as the core of business making today are quite attractive topics to me. Mr. President has already touched upon two critical aspects, and I will be echoing in some of the aspects he has already uttered, but I don't think it would be a problem re-mentioning these aspects, although it might seem as a cliche, but we're on the verge of a big transformation in the world today. And I don't know how much we can appreciate and internalize this, but there is one fact that we have to agree upon, absolutely, in restructuring the future. We all individually do have responsibilities, and I do feel quite responsible being a part of it, because the more we are involved in it, the more we will evolve the future together. Okay, this transformation that we're speaking about, is it truly because of COVID pandemics? Of course, COVID pandemic may have accelerated the execution of this transformation, making some aspects quite crucial, but it doesn't seem to be the only reason. Let's take a look at what has happened in recent years, especially after the Second World War. The economic system, or the free market economy, created the basis of development. Millions of people on Earth have improved their living conditions. Today, more than 100 million people are above the line of poverty, as we know today. In education, medicine, technology, and in many domains, we have witnessed incredible developments, innovations took place, and we are now speaking about a GDP that has just evolved into hundreds of billions, trillions of US dollars from 1.3 trillion. So altogether, we have been watching the innovation quite closely, and for the sake of humanity, we've been in big prospects, though with a big price to pay. Unfortunately, we need to speak about the other side of the coin, and in particular I will be speaking about two aspects. One is the social unemployment, and the other the environment. Essentially today, everything that we've been speaking about are based on these two aspects, two themes. Now, social inequality. From the perspective of social inequality, all the reports indicate that, say, 25 years ago, the wealthiest 10% has now increased ninefold. I mean, it was quite lower in the past. Actually, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer in terms of the share they have taken in the pie. Actually, speaking of macro figures, it shouldn't just be on an intangible way. Looking around, we can say the same thing quite easily. And I have to make a point that we all including all the participants who've been watching us now, when they're born, it's like the lottery, and we're all among the lucky minority, getting the best education, best schools, and the best living ways. And of course, this minority, which seems to be luckier than the unfortunate majority, had more to do within the society. Yes, the pandemics has not helped the situation, obviously. For instance, the research of Oxfam on inequality. Looking into the survey, 87% of the participants said that the pandemics will be causing an inequality in revenues in their respective countries. 56% say that the pandemics probably will be contributing to gender inequality. Actually, we can easily see this on the TV shows and news, like the stimulus packages of the central banks, emissions of the respective countries, and how they are delivered to the societies are discussed at length, unfortunately, with some concerns. Another field of concern is, of course, the environmental issues. The risks that we might be facing in the coming years are also indicated in the reports, according to which climate crisis and scarcity of the resources will again be the number one concern for all the societies. The Global Economic Forum has published a report indicating that out of the major 7 risks, 3 is about environment. Actually, there is no need looking into the reports for it. Just look around, and within the last 1 year, earthquakes, floods, many other natural disasters just got in the pipeline. Now we're in February. Even looking into the weather forecast, you personally will understand the severity of the problem that we are facing. And within the natural ecosystem, I don't think that the plants and animals are quite happy about it. On the other hand, there are the other pleasing developments. We are all following the Green Act of the EU. Of course, it will have a close impact on economy. Technological power of innovation actually is in the verge of a new mile, and we've been seeing the new first examples of it. All the research work and the references say something. Number one, development is not anymore measured solely on paper with figures. We've long done that for many years, but at the end of the day, we are not in a sustainable point anymore. For a sustainable life, new measurement criteria will need to be identified. For instance, access to clean water, participation of girls in education, preservation of the forests, and other maybe new units or measurement indicators we need. The one that really excites me is the happiness index next to GDP. Actually, in the philosophy of economy, it indicates that economy is not the target, though should be a purpose for happiness. But now we need to rediscuss around all of this. We need to just redefine all of these at once. The second one is development of the society in an integrated way. The private sector has a role in that. Unilever also has a new vision in this respect. 10 years ago, we were one of the first companies putting this in our vision. Sitting aside and watching everything that has been happening is not to be expected from the major institutions now. The private sector will need to take some place. So we have set a new vision for this purpose. In the last decade, we've been basing our activities on this new vision. Rather than sitting and expecting everything from the public authorities, we believe that the private sector will need to put a hand in this responsibility, not the private sector only, but also the NGOs, all the segments of the society, down to the individuals. I think it's really crucial. Undoubtedly, for a better world today, responsibility of the companies is maybe more than ever, and will continue to be so in the future. Like a few years ago, we were at the point of convincing people. Quite happily, today, rather than trying to convince, we are sitting and discussing the new agendas and discussing how we can move on with the new agenda. So we, as the private sector, have a better contribution, which I have to say is a pleasing development in Turkey, and I really care about this happening in Turkey more. Of course, there are some critical structural problems in Turkey, inequalities, coping with inequalities, and it doesn't matter who is ahead, who is behind in development issues, and our aim is not to realize a dream alone, but to create a quick impact, because in fact there is no other way that I can think about. An example to it is the invention of the vaccine, and we can show this as an example because at the end of the day the problem that we have faced in the world, it was just unique to us there. The cooperation with the private and the public sectors really created really favorable outcomes, as we happen to see with the vaccine, so that we will concentrate on the joint gains rather than who won, and we can feel that the joint gains is the best gain. At the very point, actually, from shifting from the short-term shareholder way of working, society-centered working of the private sectors is not about a social responsibility. Right on the contrary, it should be considered as a must that they will make themselves profitable. Within the existing economic conditions, we now have to accept a fact, undoubtedly. On one hand, we prioritized financial targets, but on the other, maybe as important as that, we will concentrate and run towards the joint social targets, and it will be only those companies who can achieve both will survive. It's not anymore the world that will favor the short-term targeted companies, but rather long-term society-based companies to survive. And I really feel lucky in this respect because Unilever, from the very beginning of this change, has been involved in this process, rather has been a pioneer and an inspiring company in the paradigm shifts. Though it was not an easy start off, we needed some long time to show that it's a working process, but every moment was worth that. Now it is time to speak about the future, and it really pleases me to turn our faces to the future. Now, I would like to give you some headlines as to what we've done in this process as an example of what we've been through. The first thing is, as we were running towards our growth targets, fighting with environmental and social inequalities also became a target for us. We now were sure that the two targets didn't contradict with each other as we believed in 10 years ago, integrating all these aspects in our ecosystem, industries, and the business world, and we tried to be an inspiration for everyone. And we set up a structure for long-term planning. In 2009, so as to go beyond short-term plannings, we just left aside the monthly financial planning and reporting, which was experimental at that time, but the markets and our investors really embraced this understanding so that we've become a very good example. In the reporting aspect, we've taken other steps. Therefore, from that day onwards, we're supporting this reporting, and the reports that we're using is based on internal auditors and reported as such as the financial reports. On the other hand, we are believing in a multi-stakeholder governance. Actually, this is really worth speaking on today because the mentality putting the investors in the center now had to be moved away. The way to do that is to adopt multi-stakeholder way of working. What do I mean? For a sustainable business, all stakeholders are integrated in our business processes to make value. First, our employees, of course, the customers, of course, the suppliers and the broad ecosystem, consumers, society, and our planet, so environmental issues. So this order with 6 stakeholders have become an unavoidable core of our business. And in all decisions we are taking, if we are doing a good business, this business must be touching upon the 6 aspects that we are caring about. This is still the way that we are working more than a decade. We've been basing our experiences on the fact that as the company grew, we focused also on creating a social and environmental contribution to everyone, and this what we have convinced everyone. Plus climate change, social inequalities, and the other problems that the world has been expecting solutions for have been in the core of our new responsibilities and commitments. Briefly, I'd like to make a summary of all of this. And in particular, I care about the health aspect, which I will be speaking in a minute. Firstly, in coping with the climate change, what are our commitments? By 2039, in all our products, emissions will clearly be brought to the level of 0. 2039 may look quite a long time, but as you know, the deadline by the Paris Convention is 2050, and our commitment is to be achieved 11 years earlier than this convention. So we need to work harder. So as to accelerate these interventions, with the brands of Unilever, we've come together. 1 billion euro resource, a budget has been created for afforestation, carbon management, and wild preservation, water preservation, which will be put in implementation within the next 10 years. Coping with social inequalities also involves some other commitments as follows. By 2030, the direct goods and service suppliers of the company will be brought on these commitments. If there are some legal aspects, some problems, we will need to fight against these problems. I mean compliance issues. Not only us, but all the suppliers that we've been cooperating with will need to abide by compliance, and we have to make sure that they put human in the center of everything they are doing. And by 2025, we will create a business volume of 2 billion euros, and this also will be involved in our inclusion principle. In terms of inclusion, I think it's really a big amount of money. And also for the SMEs, by 2025, a new skills, financial resources, and technology will be provided with our support. As you might guess, there are many details to these commitments. On the other hand, not only in Turkey, but also around the globe, the screen and advertisements are important. Therefore, we will make sure that we increase representation in terms of our commercial advertisements. And every penny or every lira that we're spending will be based on it. For our employees, new working models will be developed, and by 2030, 10 million of young people will have been made ready for the business opportunities with the equipped basic skills that we will provide. And from Turkey, and as of my position, the share in Turkey will need to be triggered as soon as possible, and I can't wait for it. So the commitments I care about very much, truly they are, because in the next 10 years, the commitments that we will be making in our sustainable social plan were achieved by 80%. You may criticize why not 100%, but the commitment is rather about the power of what has been achieved rather than what has not been. We have achieved 100% in some areas, though 70-80% in some others. years. But if it weren't for these commitments, we wouldn't have achieved what has been achieved so far. I think it's really having a big impact. Particularly, I would encourage the leaders of big industries to put commitments for their future. Growth, profitability are big, really priorities for the companies. But from the point that I'm standing, I rather see the system of values, which is more important. What do I mean by that? We see quite positive impacts of these values on our own employees, in particular for the younger generations. Working in the old way of doing business is unfortunately not anymore possible. Therefore, we will need to concentrate on a system that cares about the system of values, also which will be important in attracting skills and talents. And Unilever puts human in the center of everything. From the very first day of our foundation, this has remained unchanged. And we've seen this quite intensively during the pandemics. Our business models have changed swiftly. The change is inevitable, but as I said, the six stakeholders are quite critical. Our consumer society, employees, business stakeholders, business partners, and our planet. These are quite critical for us. And as long as these six survive, the rest will just go with it. And this change, though, is not something that can be achieved only by a single company. Within the circle of this discussion, I have to say that we wouldn't see a big impact if it were only Unilever doing it. But what really matters is to make an inspiration, be an inspiration, and to be all in finding solutions as a stakeholder for finding solutions. I'm sure that you had the chance of following in the Global Economic Forum. The main theme was the contemporary capitalism, and actually in this stakeholder capitalism we have undertaken some commitments so as to make our reportings according to this criteria, which I believe is a big development, because thanks to this reporting, especially environment, world, human and governance areas will be the four themes that the companies will depend on in making some measurable items. In terms of creating measurable values, the courage to report, I think, is a big step forward for the business world, and I hope you all agree with this opinion of mine. I believe truly about the future-oriented thinking, but now we are on the verge of forgetting about what we have known for quite a long time. So we need to leave aside our old way of thinking and to take leadership in the new way of thinking. Otherwise, there will be a high price to pay. When building a better future, the gains that we have made so far shouldn't be forgotten, though. Klaus Schwab, the founder of the Global Economic Forum, has said that capitalism must do a reform to continue to exist. I truly believe in this, and I think it's going to be a big opportunity ahead of us to make it happen. Edelman in 2020 thrust parameter concluded that according to the parameters, if you're following the parameters, you are quite a trustworthy company. In this reform, capitalism, with of course its fruits to provide, we need to make some changes in some aspects. I think it's going to be the best definition of the reform. What are the aspects to be changed? A multi-stakeholder way of working, sustainable economy, fair distribution of resources, and ultimately regulations, governance that will make this happen. One thing I believe our aim is it should not be to turn back to the old way of doing things or the old normal, because the old normals have already lost their validity, transparency, trust, and cooperation, collaboration, multi-stakeholder partnerships will be the foundations that will make the future possible to be built together. Everyone being with us today, I'm sure, says that they are in for this kind of a future, which makes me quite optimistic for the future, which makes me get out of the bed and come to my job every morning. Thank you very much for your attention.